Alright, so this video here is basically going to be giving a bass tune for no prep drag car when using the R1 Wurks Digital 3 ESC. Now there is a bass tune video that I've seen out there, but it doesn't appear to be a bass tune for a no prep car. It seems more like something for a crawler or something else. So what I'm going to show is a good bass setup so that you're not going to burn up your ESC when you're making your first couple of passes trying to get the chassis figured out and the ESC tune figured out. Starting off in here, a critical setting is going to be the cutoff voltage. If you decide to run anything but automatic or a 3.2 or a 3.4 cutoff, that's going to be on you if you cause any damage to your system or any problems like that. Now, when it comes to no prep drag racing, a lot of people like to take the voltage cutoff and completely disable it. This is because when you're making a hit, the voltage on the battery pack is going to sag quite a bit. And if you're sagging too close to the LiPo cutoff, it's going to start to throttle back power. Even if you do hit the LiPo voltage cutoff, you're going to lose power completely. But there's been some people saying that when they get even close to it, their car doesn't run as fast. But they disable this and the car wakes up and starts running as fast. If you turn this off, you have to accept responsibility for anything that happens to your electronics, to the ESC or anything like that, because this is a safety protection to protect all those systems. And if you're getting around it, then it's on you to accept what happens from that. Now, when it comes to a no prep car, if your car is just getting dialed in, I would honestly suggest that you have this turned on. So at least keep it to auto or 3.2. This way you don't accidentally, with a bad setting, overburst your system and just fry things up. So to start off, I would suggest leaving this on auto. And then once you've got your car figured out, it's hooking up and you're watching your data, and you can see that when you're making a hit, your voltage is staying above 6.4 volts, 6.5 volts. You're not getting close to a cutoff area, so that you don't need to worry about the damaging your system. You can turn that off, and you can monitor your system through the telemetry to ensure that you're not going into dangerous territory. But I would only suggest you do that once you've got your system dialed in and once you've got you're more familiar with the tune on your setup. So moving on from that, the next is going to be the BEC voltage. This is going to be very important. Depends on what type of servos that you have. So if you've got, basic servos that are not high voltage, then leave this at 6 volts. If you do have high voltage servos, then you can turn this up to 7.4 volts, and you're going to have more powerful servos. Now, some think that by turning it up to 7.4 volts, you might lose power available for the ESC giving power on the hit. Personally, I have not noticed that. I run mine at 7.4, and I have not noticed any difference in power from when it switched over to 6.0. So I mean, you can test that both ways if you like, but mostly this is going to be based on the type of servos that you have. So if you have a standard voltage servo, keep it at 6 volts. If you have a high voltage servo, you can go ahead and bump that up to 7.4. Now, when it comes to fan control, I like to leave it on auto. This is going to basically turn the fan off as soon as it gets below 140 Fahrenheit, I believe that is. I'm not 100% sure what that temperature would translate into Celsius. As long as you stay below 140 Fahrenheit, the ESC fan is going to be off. What I suggest doing is waiting until the fan turns off before you make another hit. So if you just finished a hit, you brought the car back to you and you want to make another hit, my personal suggestion is waiting for the fan to turn off, meaning the temperatures drop down to 140, and then you make your hit. This does a couple of things for you. This gives you a consistency of what temperature the ESC is operating at when you're making a hit. So you're not making a hit from at one point 130, at another point 150 or 160 or 90. When you're making your hits, the ESC is consistently at the same temperature, so you have a good idea of how it's going to react to your setup and your tune and what's going on. So personally, I leave this on auto and I wait for the fan to turn off before I make a hit. Mind you, there's some days where, depending on where you live, it's just so freaking hot that with the humidity and the temperatures outside and running it, that fan is gonna have a hard time shutting off. So I mean, keep an eye on your temperatures, which is basically what this is trying to instill. So on those super hot days where the fan doesn't shut off, keep an eye on the telemetry with the temperature so that you can make sure that you're cooling down the system as much as possible before you make your hit, and try and make your hits roughly from the same temperature so you have a consistency there. Now moving on to, we're going to skip everything and go directly to frequency, because this, I believe, is the step one for getting your car set up. So out the box, these settings are all at 1, which is ballistic. It's way too much power for this system. The way that the R1 system pulls amps from these batteries and delivers power at 1 or 2, like you would do with something like a hobby wing, on an R1, it's just way too much power. So what I do is I turn the motor frequency all the way up to 16, and I turn the brake frequency to 8. Now I don't want to turn the brake frequency all the way up to 16 because I still need to have some brake function. And I also don't want it to be at 1 because you're going to have a huge spike when you slam on the brakes. You're going to have a huge voltage spike or amp spike when you slam on the brakes. So I want to tone that down a little bit. So before anything, make sure that these settings are not at 1 or 2, that you have the motor frequency. I would suggest starting at 16. I don't think this is anywhere you would need to come back to again. I think you can leave the rest of your tuning inside the throttle tab and the boost and turbo tab, and you can just leave this as it is. However, if you find yourself at a brick wall, you've got as much power as you can dialed in the throttle settings and turbo settings, and you need to find some more power, I believe if you reduce the motor frequency, that should actually turn up the power delivery from the motor. But you really, I personally don't think you need to have it anywhere lower than 16. Now we're going to go over to the throttle curve. Now when it comes to the power curve, acceleration, and start power, these 3 settings all increase power as you increase the setting. So as you increase the power curve and bring that up, you're going to increase, it's not increasing power, but the system is going to deliver, like, let's just give an example. At 50% throttle, you're going to have 50% throttle on the transmitter, but on the ESC it's going to be delivering more than, it's going to be delivering like 60 or 65% throttle, depending on what the curve is there. You don't need that. You don't want to have it having more power in the mid-range and then less towards the end. When it comes to this one here, you want to have it as linear as possible. That's my personal setting. If you do feel like you want to adjust this and give yourself a little bit more punch in the mid-range of the throttle, or less punch throughout and then all the power come in towards the end, you certainly can do that. I just always find when it comes to dealing with an RC, even with a real car, a linear input gives you the most control, so that when I give it 20%, I get 20% from the car. When I give 30%, I get 30% from the car. When there's a difference between what you give and what you get, I personally find that to mud up the water a little bit when it comes to control and feeling the getting that maximum control out of the RC. When it comes to acceleration and start power, Both of these increase the amount of power that you're going to get from the motor. Acceleration is going to increase the power that you get as the car's acceleration throughout the RPMs of the motor. So as you increase accelerating, this is going to be a driving factor, a driving force on that rate of acceleration. Where start power is a little bit different. As you turn it up, this is going to change how much power you start with. So from zero, let's say you're starting from 0% throttle, let's say 0% power. If you turn this up to, let's say, 50%, instead of starting from 0% power, you're starting from 50% power. So instead of being able to just ease into the throttle and let's say you want to move the car around, bring it to the line or staging and whatnot, you can't simply ease the car to the line, because as soon as the ESC recognizes any power whatsoever, it's going to punch 50% power. So you're not going to be able, this is a crazy setting. So when you want to dial how your car is hitting off the line, you want to make your car hit with a more initial bang, more initial punch right off the line. This is the setting you do that with. And next is going to be the exact opposite of that. It's going to be smooth start rate and smooth start range. These two settings work together as basically polar opposites to starting power. These are going to pull back power depending on how much throttle you're giving. So the smooth start range is going to be the range of throttle that the ESC is going to pull back the timing. The amount of timing that the ESC is going to pull back is what you have set in your smooth start rate. So when you dial in 15 on the smooth start rate, that's going to basically pull back 15 degrees of timing on the motor, and it's going to do this for as long as you're inside the 0 to 60% throttle range. And as soon as you step out of 60%, go to 61 and up, then it's going to give you back that 15 degrees timing that it was held back. So this is a good way to, if you're spinning too much off the line, you can retard some timing for that start range, so that while you're feathering it off the line, it's not giving all that power and makes it easier for you to launch. Now this is very much a personal setting on how you want to set your start up. But personally, I run it 15 and 30. So I have 15 degrees timing for up to around 30% throttle. And then everything after 30% throttle, I'm getting everything that I asked for. For start power, I'll be honest, I keep this at 0. There's some other folks that like to turn this up to give themselves more hit off the line, but you really have to have a dialed in car that dialed in, like everything has to be perfect on your car before you can really start turning this up, or you're just going to smoke your tires off the line. Simple as that. So I would leave the start power at 0 until you get your car really dialed in. And also for a starting position, keep the smooth start range to 15 and the smooth start range to 30 and the smooth start rate to 15. Just while you're getting the car figured out, and you can turn these up later on as you're tuning in the car. The next, we're going to go to reverse. Now some people have this with forward brake reverse. I don't use that option. I keep it on reverse, no reverse function, one way only. The reason for that is because you don't want to lock your tires up for a half a second, the ESC to think the car has come to a stop, and then to kick in the reverse gear and start spinning the motor backwards. It happened to me a couple times. It's a great way to bald up a tire and fuck them up. It's also a great way to really put a harsh amount of stress on your whole drivetrain, transmission, potentially throw the car completely out of whack and have it tumbling on the big end. So myself personally, I keep this as one way. It's forward and brake, and if I have to turn the car around, I'll walk out to it and I'll turn the car around. I'm not gonna have it running with any reverse function because it doesn't need it. We're doing a drag race. Once you need to go in reverse, the race is already over, so I don't need it for the race. Next, we're gonna go to the turbo. Now, when it comes to turbo, hold on, I'm just gonna turn this off. When you have it turned off, turning it on is gonna present you with a couple of options. So, as it is right now, turbo is off. There's no boost whatsoever. Even these delay settings and slope settings mean nothing because there's no boost. So once you go to turn it on, it's going to ask for either boost, throttle, or auto throttle. Do not use throttle or auto throttle until you're super experienced. Personally, I don't even think you need to use those once you're experienced. That's more for like other types of RC. When it comes to no prep drag, I personally just use boost. Now, if there's others that are using the throttle or the auto throttle and they have good success with it, all good. Talk to them, see how they're using it. Myself personally, I leave it in the boost tab so I can adjust the turbo timing and the boost timing individually, and I can adjust the RPM range that my boost kicks in. Now, when it comes to turbo and boost, basically the difference is boost is gonna give you a set amount of timing over a set amount of RPM. So we're gonna be able to adjust when the boost comes on and when the boost turns off, and it's gonna steadily increase as it's going along that arc from the turn off point to the off point, and we're gonna be able to adjust how much boost is being delivered in that range. Turbo is different. Turbo is only going to give you the amount of timing that you turn on in your turbo set. Let's say you set it to 10 or 15 or 20, 30, 40. It's only going to give you that additional timing once you've pulled full throttle. Once you've gone full throttle, then it goes over to the delays and the slopes. So the turbo delay is how long after you pull full throttle is it going to start to kick in the turbo. Turbo slope is going to be the rate at which the boost increases once you've pulled full throttle and it's kicked in after the delay. So if you have it set to 0.2, the time that boost is going to come on, go from 0 to full boost, is going to be in 0.2 seconds. And when it comes to myself personally, I like to use the boost in the mid-range. So when I turn on, you got to click on the boost tab over to the top right over here. Once you click on that, you can adjust how much boost you want to add in. Let's say we add 5 degrees. Myself personally, I like to choose the range that it's in. So when it comes to the where we want it to stop, we want it to go to the maximum possible, which in this ESC is 65,000 RPM. And the starting range, I have this right around the area where my wheels are hooking. So that could be anywhere between 30,000 and 40,000, let's say. So let's say 40,000 RPM. Boom. So what this means is, as you can tell by, we'll just leave it there. As you can tell by the slope, between 39,000 is when the boost is going to start coming on. It's going to progressively increase until it gets to 65,000, where we're going to have that full 5 degrees of additional timing boost. When it comes to turbo, this is going to be only once you have hit full throttle, so you're not going to see that in the graph. But at the same rate, it's going to be basically 25 degrees timing, let's say, once you've hit full throttle, and depending on how you have it set up in your slopes. Now, when it comes to setting up the car initially, and you're just getting the car dialed in, you honestly need 0 boost at all. So I would not run that whatsoever. Keep the boost off. Once you've got your gearing, got your car figured out a little bit, you've got it going straight, everything is working, you want to start building on your tune, making your car go faster, then I would start with 5 degrees in boost and maybe 10 or 15 degrees on the turbo. So with that, we'll drop this down to 15. and leave that at 5. And I would say that between 35,000 and 40,000, or 30,000 and 40,000 for the timing to kick in for the boost, and 65,000 for where you want to shut off. You want to go as high as possible. So this would be once you do turn on the boost, at first keep it off, but once you do finally turn on the boost, then I would say that this would be a good place to start adjusting your boost. And if you want more punch in the mid-range and the you know, before you grab full throttle, while your car's at a specific RPM, based on how your telemetry reads out, based on how you drive the car, then you can adjust that there. And yeah, that's going to be basically it for the turbo tuning and the boost. So when it comes to tuning the car, on the throttle tab, you basically have your acceleration, start power, and smooth start rate. This is going to be how you tune leaving the gate, getting the car out the gate. Once you've got the car leaving the gate properly, then you use the boost and the turbo to adjust bringing in more power mid-range down the track, and then at the top end of the track. So you kind of have 3 areas of power that you have being delivered. You have the starting area, you have the mid-range area, and the top area. So with that, I mean, I hope this helps a lot of people using the R1 Wurks Digital 3. I have seen a lot of people burning up sensor boards, burning up the power switch and so on. Now I've also seen a few of them that have some manufacturing issues where the positive and negative wire were reversed, and even one of them was cold soldered, so it didn't actually even stick to the terminal on the ESC itself. And I think another person's sensor board just fell out. Things like that have been happening. Now I don't know if it's bad production line, or there seems to me personally to have been might have been a production run where things were rushed, not up to standards. And I do see that Steve and the R1 guys are trying to make good on that. If you got a bad ESC, they, from what I've seen, have been sending out replacements to make sure that everything's right. But you have to contact them. You have to contact them and process the return paperwork and so forth. Now, at the same time, if it's not a factory defect and guys are just, you know, plugging it in, bringing the car to the track, hitting full throttle, and seeing what happens, and something burns up, a lot of the times is because we're running extremely high amp draw motors that you don't normally run in these kinds of ESCs that are, you know, in touring cars and things of that nature, where they're running 13.5 and 17.5s in blinky mode and whatnot. When it comes to this no prep stuff, we're really pushing these electronics to the absolute limits. So it's important when doing that before you make a hit, you dial it back enough so that you're not gonna take the risk of damaging anything if something goes wrong. If you spin a tire, or you spin and grab real hard or something, and it sends a shock to the ESC, where it takes a burst it can't handle because one setting or 2 settings were just not in a safe place. I hope that this video here can prevent those types of things from happening, because I really do believe in the CSC. It's a powerhouse. I've pulled a chunk of amps, a chunk of RPMs. The thing is ballistic fast. It's just not fully made for drag racing, so we have to sort of make some adjustments and accommodate some of the characteristics of the ESC because of that. Hopefully in the future, kind of like Macan has done, where they've made a DRK ESC, I think that if R1 was put in the same kind of effort and made a drag version of the R1 Wurks Digital 3 ESC, I don't think there'd be any contender. I think this one is still one of, if not the best ESC for drag racing, despite the DRK coming out. So I mean, that says a lot. I will be getting a DRK, so I will be testing with that, and I'll be able to know for sure. But right now, as far as this ESC is, you have to dial back power a lot. I've not found myself in a position where I've ran out of power. 90% of the time, you're dialing back power because it just gives way too much. So with that, I hope this video has been helpful. Please check out my YouTube channel. It's Northside Customs RC. Like, subscribe, share, and enjoy the RC life.